August 14, 1942, occupied French coastline, pre-dawn. The tide slipped quietly over jagged rocks, whispering against the hulls of small, blacked-out landing craft. British commandos, clad in dark uniforms and armed with knives, silenced pistols, and compact explosives, pressed forward with methodical precision. Each movement was measured, each breath controlled, as they slid from the water onto the rocky shore. The horizon was still gray, the first hint of sunlight had not yet touched the sea. German sentries patrolled the beach in predictable patterns, unaware that skilled intruders were already threading between them. The commandos' footsteps left no trace, even the snapping of a pebble was avoided. Every hand gesture, every whispered order, was rehearsed countless times in training, preparing for this exact moment. A nearby bunker loomed, its occupants unaware that their defenses were about to be penetrated. Radios crackled faintly from the German command post, the sound of routine and confidence. Within minutes, all of that would change. Silent, unseen, and lethal, the British commandos advanced. By the time Axis forces realized what had happened, panic had already set in, and the battlefield itself had been rewritten by shadows moving in the dark. By 1942, the Allies faced a strategic challenge along the coastlines of occupied Europe. German forces had fortified ports, railways, and supply depots, using a combination of concrete bunkers, minefields, and patrols to secure vital areas. Conventional bombing raids, while destructive, often failed to produce the precision needed to disrupt enemy operations without excessive civilian or Allied casualties. The need for small, agile forces capable of stealthy strikes became increasingly clear. In response, Britain developed specialized commando units. Formed from volunteers drawn from the Army, Navy, and Air Force, these men underwent rigorous selection and training. Physical endurance, mental resilience, and tactical ingenuity were paramount. Recruits were trained to move silently over varied terrain, swim long distances, navigate in darkness, and neutralize heavily armed guards with minimal noise. Every exercise emphasized stealth over brute force. Success was measured in the ability to infiltrate, complete objectives, and escape without being detected. Commandos were deployed for multiple purposes: sabotage of coastal installations, intelligence gathering, and diversionary raids. Operations like these required precise timing. A single misstep, a misjudged wave, a pebble shifted underfoot, or an unguarded radio click could alert German forces and endanger the entire mission. It was an environment where human skill, training, and courage were as vital as any weapon. Meanwhile, German defenses along the coast were formidable. Troops were disciplined and heavily armed, trained to detect movement, respond to intrusions, and maintain constant surveillance. Bunkers overlooked beaches, machine guns and mortars covered likely landing sites, and patrols crisscrossed the terrain in patterns designed to catch the unwary. Yet these defenses were calibrated to predictable behaviors, assuming intruders would approach en masse or be detected by noise. They had not anticipated the extraordinary stealth of British commandos. The environment demanded innovation. Commandos relied on specialized equipment: folding knives, silenced pistols, miniature explosives, grappling hooks, and collapsible boats. Each tool was designed to maximize effectiveness while minimizing the chance of detection. In training, every piece of equipment was tested repeatedly under conditions designed to simulate enemy observation and terrain challenges. The combination of human skill and technical preparation allowed small teams to achieve results that would have been impossible for larger conventional forces. By understanding the enemy's routine, exploiting timing, and maximizing the utility of equipment, British commandos turned stealth into a strategic weapon. Even small operations had outsized effects. Sabotaging a communications post could delay enemy reinforcements, destroying a single rail line could disrupt supply chains for days, and the mere presence of unseen raiding forces created uncertainty that rippled through the German ranks. The stage was set for one of the most dramatic demonstrations of this capability. Along a stretch of fortified coastline, British commandos prepared for a silent infiltration mission that would test every aspect of their training, equipment, and nerve. The Axis troops, confident in their routine patrols and defensive measures, were unaware that their discipline and preparation would soon be challenged, and that fear, confusion, and panic would emerge where certainty had once reigned. By combining stealth, precision, and audacity, these small teams could create strategic effects far larger than their numbers suggested. Their actions would not only disrupt enemy operations but also undermine morale, leaving Axis commanders struggling to comprehend how a handful of men could move unseen, strike decisively, and vanish without a trace. This environment, where human skill, tactical planning, and psychological pressure intersected, provided the context for the events that followed. The next phase of the story would reveal how the commandos, invisible and disciplined, turned a routine patrol area into a scene of Axis panic, demonstrating the transformative power of stealth and strategy in modern warfare. While the strategic importance of British Commando raids was clear, the success of any operation depended on preparation at an extraordinary level of detail. Each mission began with careful reconnaissance. Intelligence officers studied aerial photographs, noting enemy positions, patrol patterns, bunker locations, and natural obstacles. Even tidal charts and moon phases were analyzed to determine optimal landing times and approach routes. The goal was simple: move undetected, strike precisely, and disappear before the enemy could respond. Commandos underwent intensive selection and training to meet these demands. Recruits were tested for physical endurance in extreme conditions, swimming in icy waters, climbing cliffs, running long distances with heavy packs. Mental resilience was equally emphasized. Recruits learned to operate under high stress, remain calm under fire, and make split-second decisions while isolated from support. Mock raids simulated the chaos of enemy detection, with instructors creating unexpected obstacles to ensure that teams could adapt on the fly. Only those demonstrating exceptional skill, discipline, and nerve advanced to actual operational deployments. Specialized equipment complemented this training. Silenced weapons allowed commandos to neutralize sentries quietly. Folding knives and grappling hooks enabled swift access to obstacles or locked areas. Collapsible boats and waterproof containers facilitated silent landings and the safe transport of explosives. Even minor innovations, adjusting paddle design for quieter strokes, or modifying waterproofing for explosives, could mean the difference between success and failure. In every respect, preparation aimed to maximize operational effectiveness while minimizing exposure. Axis forces, by contrast, relied on routine and observation. German troops patrolled the coastline in shifts, manned observation posts, and depended on sound, light, and visual signals to detect intrusion. Their training emphasized discipline, rapid response, and strict adherence to procedure. However, this rigidity left them vulnerable to unconventional threats. The commandos' methods, approaching at low tide, using darkness, and exploiting predictable patterns in enemy rotations, were designed to exploit these blind spots. The planning for the mission that would ultimately cause Axis panic was meticulous. Commandos rehearsed approach routes multiple times, memorized patrol patterns, and synchronized movements down to the second. Explosives were positioned to neutralize communications and defenses without alerting other areas. Every team member understood the importance of stealth. A single noise could compromise the entire operation. This combination of preparation, training, and ingenuity created an invisible force capable of striking anywhere along the coastline. The psychological dimension was equally important. Commandos trained to remain calm in the face of danger, to act decisively when confronted with unexpected obstacles, and to maintain the initiative. They learned to read subtle cues, shifts in enemy posture, changes in ambient noise, that indicated potential detection. This mental acuity allowed small teams to operate in isolation, confident that their actions would achieve results far beyond their numbers. German morale, while generally disciplined, was susceptible to disruption. Isolated coastal units often worked long hours with limited intelligence about Allied operations. Reports of sudden raids, destroyed equipment, or missing personnel produced anxiety and fear. Commandos exploited this psychological vulnerability, deliberately timing raids and movements to induce confusion and hesitation. By combining stealth, speed, and precision, they could neutralize enemy defenses while instilling doubt and panic among the troops. The environment for this mission was now fully prepared. Trained commandos, specialized equipment, detailed intelligence, and a thorough understanding of the enemy's routines created the conditions for a decisive operation. German forces, confident in their patrols and procedures, remained unaware of the storm approaching under the cover of dawn. By the time Axis troops realized their defenses were compromised, the commandos' infiltration would already be underway, setting the stage for chaos, panic, and the demonstration of a tactical advantage that would reverberate far beyond the immediate area. The heart of every commando raid lay in the men themselves. Volunteers trained for months in rigorous conditions, their bodies conditioned to endure long swims, climbs, and heavy loads, while their minds were sharpened to operate under intense stress. Each step taken during infiltration demanded total focus. One slip of a foot, one cough, or one hurried breath could compromise the mission and cost lives. Discipline and trust were paramount. Each commando knew that the team's survival depended on precise coordination. Silent hand signals replaced spoken words. Timing and spacing were measured in seconds and meters. The psychological burden was immense. These men operated in isolation, far from support, facing heavily armed enemy troops with lethal intent. Yet, the knowledge that every member was equally trained and skilled created confidence. This human cohesion, honed through relentless repetition, was as crucial to mission success as any weapon or tool. British commandos were equipped with gear designed for stealth and efficiency. Silenced pistols and submachine guns allowed sentries to be neutralized without alerting nearby troops. Folding knives, grappling hooks, and wire cutters provided the means to overcome physical obstacles quietly. Collapsible canoes enabled silent landings over water, and waterproof containers ensured explosives and supplies remained operational in harsh conditions. Every piece of equipment was tested under simulated operational conditions. Modifications were common: paddles reshaped for quieter strokes, waterproofing refined for explosives, and adjustments made to ensure that each tool could be used instinctively under pressure. The careful integration of technology and skill gave commandos the ability to strike efficiently and vanish before the enemy could respond, turning small units into disproportionately effective forces. Success relied not only on bravery or equipment but on tactical ingenuity. Infiltration required knowledge of enemy routines, terrain, and timing. Commandos exploited predictable patrols, gaps in observation posts, and natural cover to advance undetected. Approach routes were rehearsed meticulously, often multiple times, to account for tides, weather, and potential hazards. Stealth dictated every decision. Teams moved in low formation, avoided silhouetting against the skyline, and synchronized movement to minimize noise. Timing was crucial. An early move could expose them to watchful eyes, while a delay might reduce the element of surprise. Tactical planning ensured that even small units could neutralize multiple objectives quickly, leaving minimal opportunity for the enemy to react effectively. German troops patrolling the coast were disciplined and armed, yet they operated within a framework that emphasized procedure over adaptability. Observation posts, bunkers, and patrol routes were effective against conventional attacks, but poorly equipped to respond to a silent, unpredictable infiltrator. The Axis reliance on routine made them vulnerable. Patrols moved at regular intervals, sentries adhered to strict schedules, and defensive focus was directed toward overt threats. Commandos exploited these blind spots, appearing where least expected and disappearing before the enemy could organize. The initial signs of infiltration, slightly disturbed pebbles, muted sounds, or shadows in the corner of vision, were often dismissed until it was too late. The success of commando operations depended as much on leadership as on individual skill. Officers and mission planners faced decisions that balanced risk against reward. Every approach, landing, and objective was scrutinized for potential detection, environmental hazards, and enemy strength. Leaders had to anticipate the enemy's reactions and prepare contingencies for every scenario. Commanders instilled confidence through detailed briefings, precise timing, and clear chains of command. By maintaining discipline and ensuring every operative understood the plan, leaders created a unity of purpose that was essential in high-stakes, high-risk operations. Their guidance enabled small teams to achieve strategic effects that would normally require hundreds of soldiers. Leadership in these missions was not about issuing orders, it was about enabling initiative, adaptability, and calculated audacity. British commandos often operated in morally complex circumstances. Their missions involved sabotage, assassination of sentries, and destruction of infrastructure. While lethal, their actions were carefully targeted to achieve objectives with minimal collateral damage. Planning emphasized precision over indiscriminate force. The ethical consideration of minimizing civilian casualties while maximizing operational impact shaped every aspect of the mission. Even explosives were selected and placed to limit unnecessary destruction. This moral discipline distinguished commando raids from conventional bombings, reinforcing a code of conduct that guided every decision under the extreme pressure of enemy territory. The silent infiltration was as much a psychological weapon as a physical one. German troops, trained for conventional attacks, faced an enemy they could not see or predict. Shadows moving in the dark, near misses with patrols, and unexplained sabotage sowed doubt and fear. Even before combat began, uncertainty began to erode their confidence. Commandos understood the effect of fear. Stealth, timing, and precise action created confusion that amplified the impact of minimal engagement. German reports later described moments of paralyzing hesitation, when sentries failed to act decisively for fear of being ambushed. Panic spread not from brute force, but from the perception of omnipresence, the sense that the enemy was everywhere yet nowhere. Every aspect of the commando operation reflected ingenuity. From the design of equipment to the use of terrain, from timing operations with tides and moonlight to improvising solutions on the spot, creative thinking allowed small teams to overcome overwhelming odds. Grappling hooks replaced ladders, silent drills replaced noisy forced entry, and small teams achieved what larger conventional units could not. Innovation extended to psychological manipulation. Commandos sometimes used decoys, misdirection, and deliberate noise to draw enemy attention away from the true objective. Every mission combined mechanical skill, mental acuity, and improvisation, producing results that left Axis forces disoriented and ineffective. The silent infiltration was a testament to how human ingenuity could amplify limited resources into decisive strategic impact. August 14, 1942, occupied French coastline, early dawn. The tide had ebbed low, revealing jagged rocks and a narrow strip of sand. British commandos crouched in the shallow water, their faces masked by grease paint and shadows. Each team member carried a silenced pistol, a folding knife, and small waterproof containers of explosives. The mission objective was clear: infiltrate the German coastal defense post, sabotage communications, and retreat undetected. The first sentry appeared at the bunker's edge, pacing in the soft dawn light. The commandos froze, waiting for the precise moment. One operative slipped forward, knife in hand. A swift motion, a muffled thump, and the guard crumpled silently onto the sand. Not a sound. The others moved in perfect synchrony, sliding past observation posts and low walls. Every movement rehearsed countless times in training now translated into lethal efficiency. A radio tower loomed ahead, its operator unaware of the approaching shadows. Two commandos moved quietly along the perimeter, placing small charges at the tower's base. Each explosive was set to detonate with precise timing, ensuring destruction while minimizing risk to surrounding areas. Another team advanced toward a storage hut, cutting communications cables with wire cutters. Each action was deliberate, silent, and coordinated, leaving no trace. The German troops remained oblivious. Their routine patrols failed to detect the intruders, Footsteps in the sand went unnoticed, shadows melted into the morning gray, and signals were misinterpreted as harmless natural movements. The Axis soldiers, confident in their control, had not anticipated the speed, stealth, and precision of a well-trained commando team. Suddenly, a second sentry approached from the rear. The commando team reacted instinctively, neutralizing the guard without hesitation. No shots rang out, no alarm was sounded. Within minutes, the commandos had penetrated the core of the defensive installation. Explosives were placed at strategic points, communications disrupted, and sensitive documents collected for intelligence purposes. The tension was palpable. Every heartbeat echoed in silence. One slip, one miscalculation, and the mission would fail. Yet the commandos pressed on, their training guiding every step. Their knowledge of terrain, timing, and enemy behavior allowed them to move like ghosts across the fortified landscape. By mid-morning, the first signs of Axis awareness began to emerge. A sentry, noticing minor disturbances, a moved pebble, a door ajar, attempted to raise the alarm. Yet by the time his voice carried beyond the walls, the commandos were already executing the final phase, extraction. They retraced their route, moving toward concealed landing craft waiting offshore. Each operative remained disciplined, avoiding contact and maintaining stealth until safely aboard. The first encounter with German forces demonstrated the perfect combination of preparation, skill, and opportunity. Commandos had achieved objectives that would normally have required significant manpower and firepower, all without a single shot being fired. Axis forces were beginning to realize their defenses had been compromised, but the damage was done, and the commandos had already begun their withdrawal. The mission's opening hours had set the tone for the chaos that was about to follow. German troops, initially unaware, were now confronted with the reality of silent, precise, and deadly intruders operating at will within their fortifications. The stage was set for panic, confusion, and the unraveling of a disciplined defensive system. August 14, 1942, occupied French coastline, mid-morning. The first explosions shattered the illusion of calm. Charges at the radio tower detonated with surgical precision, cutting communications and leaving German troops isolated. Sentries scrambled, shouting orders and firing sporadically, but their reactions were disorganized. They were encountering an enemy they could not see, striking with speed and stealth that violated every expectation. From the shadows, the commandos moved systematically through the complex. Each team neutralized obstacles, collected intelligence, and left traps for pursuing forces. German troops, accustomed to conventional attacks, were paralyzed by the suddenness and invisibility of the raid. Officers barked commands that were ignored or misinterpreted as chaos spread. Patrols collided in confusion, unsure of the intruder's location or numbers. One commando team approached the main supply hut. With precise cuts to padlocks and silent maneuvers, they secured documents, maps, and coded materials. Another set small charges to destroy fuel depots, ensuring minimal collateral damage yet maximum disruption. Every action reinforced the perception of omnipresence. Axis forces could see no one, yet suffered significant losses. By mid-morning, panic began to take hold. German soldiers abandoned disciplined patterns, fleeing to command posts and defensive positions without coordination. Reports over field radios described ghosts, vanishing attackers, and impossible speed. Officers struggled to restore order, but fear had spread faster than any command. The commandos' silent infiltration had effectively weaponized uncertainty, turning an orderly defensive system into chaos. Meanwhile, extraction began. Teams retraced their approach, moving toward hidden landing craft along the tide-swept shore. Even during withdrawal, discipline prevailed. Patrols that came close were evaded or temporarily neutralized, maintaining the illusion that the intruders could strike anywhere. By the time the last commando boarded the craft, Axis forces were still attempting to reorganize, unaware of the full scope of the raid. The operation lasted barely a few hours, yet its effects were outsized. Strategic objectives were achieved, communications disrupted, intelligence gathered, and vital infrastructure damaged. Losses among the commandos were minimal, while German forces faced not only physical damage but a profound psychological shock. Confidence in routine patrols, observation posts, and defensive procedures had been shattered. Reports later documented the extent of Axis confusion. Officers noted troops frozen in place, patrols failing to coordinate, and attempts to engage intruders proving futile. German communications, already disrupted, amplified the panic. Within hours, the coastline was in disarray, leaving commanders scrambling to restore order and prevent further exploitation by Allied forces. The mission's success was not simply measured in tangible damage but in its psychological impact. The silent, precise, and disciplined actions of a small commando unit had demonstrated that skill, preparation, and stealth could overcome even fortified and numerically superior defenses. For British commandos, it validated months of preparation and training. For Axis forces, it was a humbling lesson in vulnerability, unpredictability, and the terror induced by unseen adversaries. By late morning, the commandos had returned safely to their base. The tide carried them silently away from the chaos left behind. German troops remained in panic, uncertain where the next strike might occur or how to prevent it. The raid became a benchmark for commando operations, demonstrating that psychological dominance, stealth, and precise execution could multiply the impact of even a handful of men. The mission's immediate impact was both physical and psychological. German forces, trained for vigilance and rapid response, had been outmaneuvered by a small, disciplined team of British commandos. Reports from field officers described chaos. Patrols were scattered, defensive positions abandoned, and attempts to restore order were largely ineffective. Soldiers questioned the reliability of their own observation posts, unsure how intruders had bypassed multiple layers of security without being detected. For the British, the operation represented a validation of commando doctrine. Months of rigorous training, meticulous planning, and careful rehearsal had produced a result that far exceeded expectations. Objectives were completed, communications were disrupted, critical intelligence was secured, and key infrastructure was damaged, all without alerting the majority of enemy forces. Losses were minimal, no commando had been killed, and injuries were limited to minor scrapes and bruises. The combination of stealth, timing, and precision had achieved operational success with efficiency that conventional units could not have matched. The psychological consequences for German troops were profound. The awareness that unseen adversaries could strike at will eroded confidence and heightened anxiety. Reports noted that sentries hesitated in their duties, officers questioned routines, and even minor disturbances, a shifted pebble or a shadow in the sand, were treated as potential threats. The infiltration demonstrated that conventional vigilance and patrols were insufficient against a calculated, disciplined, and stealthy opponent. Operational planning across the region began to shift. British commanders saw the potential for expanded raids along the coastline, exploiting the fear and uncertainty created by the initial success. The mission provided not only tactical gains but also a blueprint for future operations. Small, highly trained teams, using stealth and precise timing, could disrupt enemy forces disproportionately to their size. Training emphasized these lessons, reinforcing the value of preparation, improvisation, and psychological insight. Axis commanders scrambled to adapt. Communications lines were checked and reinforced, patrols became more frequent, and additional observation posts were installed. Yet the fundamental weakness remained. Small, agile, and stealthy units could exploit the predictable behavior of larger, conventionally organized forces. Panic and disorganization, once sown, were difficult to reverse, leaving German units vulnerable to repeat operations. The raid also highlighted the importance of morale and confidence. British commandos returned with a renewed sense of capability and pride, understanding that their skill and precision could achieve strategic effects far beyond their numbers. The psychological boost among Allied forces complemented the tangible damage inflicted, reinforcing the notion that intelligence, discipline, and courage were as powerful as firepower. At the same time, lessons were taken from the Axis reaction. Intelligence assessments confirmed the effectiveness of silent infiltration and identified vulnerabilities in German defenses. Commanders recognized that fear itself was a force multiplier. The mere knowledge of unseen adversaries created hesitation, disarray, and mistakes, amplifying the impact of every action. The mission also demonstrated the crucial role of preparation and equipment. Every silenced pistol, knife, grappling hook, and explosive had been used with precision. The seamless integration of human skill and technical innovation allowed a small team to achieve outcomes that larger conventional forces could not replicate. It was a clear example of how careful planning, technical ingenuity, and disciplined execution could transform limited resources into decisive strategic advantages. By the end of the day, the British had achieved more than a tactical victory. They had reshaped the operational environment. Axis forces were forced into defensive postures, patrol routines were disrupted, and fear began to influence every decision. The Commando raid proved that stealth, discipline, and audacity could challenge even the most prepared enemy, leaving a lasting mark on both strategy and morale in the theater of operations. The ripple effects of the Commando raid extended far beyond the immediate battlefield. News of the silent infiltration spread quickly among Allied planners, reinforcing the effectiveness of small unit operations and encouraging the expansion of similar missions across occupied Europe. Commandos became a symbol of ingenuity and daring, demonstrating that precision, stealth, and psychological insight could achieve strategic results that conventional forces could not. Axis forces, meanwhile, faced an operational crisis. German commanders struggled to restore confidence among troops who had witnessed, or heard of, the infiltration. Patrol routines were intensified, observation posts multiplied, and defensive positions reinforced. Yet these measures could not fully counter the psychological shock inflicted by the raid. Soldiers remained wary, uncertain when or where the next silent strike might occur. Commanders realized that the unpredictability of commando operations had introduced a new variable into coastal defense, one that could not be fully mitigated by manpower or fortifications alone. Intelligence analysis within the British command recognized the broader strategic value of the operation. Beyond the immediate destruction of communications and infrastructure, the raid provided actionable intelligence on enemy routines, troop dispositions, and reaction times. This information informed future planning, allowing subsequent operations to exploit the same weaknesses with increased confidence and effectiveness. Each successful mission reinforced the notion that carefully executed small unit raids could disrupt larger strategic frameworks. The psychological impact on Axis forces was particularly significant. Reports from German units described moments of hesitation, disorganized responses, and fear of unseen adversaries. Even experienced officers admitted that their training had not prepared them for intrusions of this nature. The knowledge that the enemy could operate undetected anywhere along the coastline created a persistent sense of vulnerability. This fear, amplified across multiple units, reduced operational efficiency and forced commanders to commit additional resources to defensive measures, diverting attention and manpower from other critical areas. On the Allied side, the mission elevated the prestige of the British Commandos. Their success inspired confidence among planners, troops, and civilians alike, demonstrating that skill, preparation, and audacity could yield results far beyond the scale of the force deployed. The operation became a case study in precision warfare, showing that meticulous planning, combined with innovative tactics and technology, could produce effects that rivaled or surpassed traditional large-scale assaults. Subsequent operations drew directly on lessons learned from this raid. Approach routes were refined, timing was optimized with tidal and moonlight data, and equipment adjustments were incorporated into standard issue. Commandos became experts not only in execution but also in analyzing the psychological and procedural vulnerabilities of the enemy. Their ability to move silently, strike decisively, and vanish without detection became a cornerstone of Allied strategy in coastal operations. The long-term impact on Axis planning was clear. fear of further silent infiltrations forced changes in patrol strategy, defensive deployment, and communication protocols. The unpredictability of commando raids disrupted the routine confidence German troops relied upon, creating an environment where uncertainty governed action. The raid demonstrated that a small, highly trained, and disciplined unit could have outsized influence on both tactical and strategic levels, shaping the behavior of larger forces through stealth and precision. Ultimately, the operation illustrated a profound truth about modern warfare: technology, training, and courage are multiplied when combined with intelligence, psychological insight, and innovation. The British Commando's silent infiltration had not only achieved its immediate objectives but had also reshaped enemy behavior, informed future planning, and cemented the legacy of small unit tactics in the wider conflict. The story of this silent commando infiltration is more than a tale of daring raids. It is a testament to human ingenuity, discipline, and courage under pressure. A handful of men, trained to operate with precision and stealth, disrupted a fortified enemy, caused panic, and achieved strategic results far beyond their numbers. Their success was not measured solely in destroyed infrastructure or captured intelligence, but in the psychological impact they inflicted, a lesson that echoed across occupied Europe. The operation highlights the profound value of preparation. Months of rigorous training, meticulous reconnaissance, and careful rehearsal transformed ordinary soldiers into a force capable of extraordinary results. Each decision, from equipment selection to route timing, was calculated to minimize risk and maximize effectiveness. This combination of planning and execution exemplifies the principle that in warfare, skill and foresight can outweigh size and firepower. Beyond tactics, the mission underscores the power of psychological influence in combat. German forces, trained for conventional defense, were unprepared for an enemy that could move unseen, strike with precision, and vanish without a trace. Panic, hesitation, and confusion became as effective as physical force, demonstrating that fear itself is a weapon when wielded by disciplined and creative hands. The legacy of the British Commandos endures in military history. Their silent infiltrations reshaped doctrine, proving that small, agile units could achieve strategic impact disproportionate to their size. The raid stands as a reminder that courage, innovation, and human skill remain central to the art of war, even amidst technological and numerical superiority. In the end, the coastline of occupied France became a theater not just of destruction, but of ingenuity. The British Commandos showed that stealth, precision, and daring could rewrite the rules of engagement. One silent infiltration, executed with meticulous skill, transformed fear into a strategic weapon, leaving a lasting imprint on both the enemy and the course of modern warfare. The mission's lesson is timeless. Even in the chaos of war, discipline, preparation, and human ingenuity can achieve the extraordinary, turning shadows into instruments of decisive power.